Alright, so, after we talked about footwork, the next two important things are our defense, which I'll cover in another video, and our offense. Because the way that it works is you shouldn't be able to do anything else before you can walk, and that you have no reason to attack if you can't defend yourself, right? So in that order of importance, you've got footwork, defense, attacking. So, very, very, very basic beginner idea. There are 4 quadrants on a fighter's body, right? So you've got 1 on my right shoulder, and also part of my chest. Second one on my left shoulder, and part of my chest. And then you've got 3 on my right hip, and 4 on my left hip. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Now each one of those quadrants also includes the side of that body. So I've got all this would be 1, all of this would be 2, and that's going to include my arms. And then 3 is going to be my hip, all the way down my leg, and 4 all the way down my leg. So on my opponent, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So I've got those 4 points. There are a couple of important things about each one of the quadrants that you should know. So if you're a right-handed fighter like I am, your most easy shot is going, and the one that's going to feel the most natural and the easiest to learn is going to be your second quadrant. So it's going to be your opponent's left shoulder. So that's going to be this guy right here for me. So if I'm going to go for his arm, I can literally just boom. I am still protected well enough because if they return a shot, I can block with my hand, right? Or I can just return and block here. So it's a pretty safe shot. From here, I can reach out. I can try to get this. However, because of that, that is usually like a sword and border's shield, right? That's usually the most protected part of your opponent's body. So it's the easiest for you, but it's also the most defended from your opponent. The sword and border, they've got their shield on their left hand, and they've got their sword on the right? So, that includes the top of their shoulder, that includes their arm, and their side. Most of the shield's going to cover all of that. But if your opponent doesn't have a shield, that's going to be the most easy. So because of that, you don't ever really want to start with that being your first shot, because as soon as I do this, right, I can defend myself, but they're going to immediately return, and I've got to immediately become on the defensive. So it's a very low reward shot for a high risk than it's worth going for. So instead, if we go for the other shoulder, right, the other shoulder, we're attacking their sword side if they're another right-handed fighter. So sword side, that's forcing them to block with their sword. We're now engaging their sword, keeping them from having to, or being able to return a shot. So those are the 2 most important things on quadrants 1 and 2. 2 is going to be really easy, but well defended. Quadrant 1 is going to be a little bit more difficult for you to pull off because you're crossing your arms to get there, which you should always avoid doing as much as possible. So if I've done this, I'm tangling their sword up, and that's going to free me up. It's going to give me a second for them to reset so I can have a chance to do something else. Now, your hips, again, my right side, my opponent's left side, is going to be my easier leg to go for. It's just like quadrant 2, quadrant 4 is easy. It's natural for you to go towards if you're right-handed, right? Flip all of this if you're lefty. However, quadrant 3 on this side is going to be a little bit more difficult for you to go towards, and you're exposing your right arm again. So, you know, if somebody comes over with a high cross or something, they're going to take that arm from you. So you got to be explosive, try to get that block in there, make sure you know what you're doing. Now, that you know, your opponent's attack side, the side they have a sword on, is going to be much more offensive. You're going to have a much higher risk attacking that side of the body, which makes sense, right? So, from there, you think, well, okay, if I can't attack the right side because they're defended really well, and I can't attack the left side because they're just going to attack me, I'm going to lose something, what should you do? Always throw more than 1 shot. Always. Doesn't matter what you do, as long as you throw more than 1 shot. The most common is you're going to throw something in, let's say, at quadrant 2, and then quadrant 1. That is a 2-shot combo that forces your opponent to react to it. If you do the flip of that, so if I do this, I am tangling up my opponent's sword side, right? So they've either blocked with their sword, and they can't immediately respond, or they've turned their body and blocked it with their shield, and they're going to try to return, cross over their own shield, which is your best case scenario, because in that case, I can switch here while they're reloading their shot, and hopefully snag an arm or a shoulder, right? So we end up here. So that way I've done something to address their threat and then punish them for reacting to mine. Same thing with legs. If I start down here, I've forced them to do the same thing, or I've given them this juicy arm and they want to come for this arm, and they're going to react to that. So hopefully they're either twisting their body to try to block with their shield so they can reload and shoot, or they've backed up doing one of these things. So that way I miss that shot altogether and they're going to come down. I go for something over here instead. Always throw more than one shot. Doesn't matter what you do. You can even throw in the same quadrant. So like, let's say I go for that arm, and then they're like, aha, he's going to cross over to this other side. I'm going to hit that quadrant again in hopes that they expected me to do something. Because if I set up a pattern, right? So I go 2, 1, 2, 1. They're going to expect me to go to 2 again. But if I do 2, 1, 1, it's breaking that pattern. We told them, hey, I'm going to do this thing. And then we were like, haha, I psyched you out. I didn't do that. And that's how you win fights. Playing that, breaking patterns, playing the mental game, which is all more advanced techniques that we'll talk about in the future. Then, of course, we get into talking about the likelihood of you landing one of those shots. The reason I say throw more than one shot is because no matter what your first shot is, your power level is probably not, especially if you're watching these videos, going to be excessively higher than your opponent's. If you can walk up to somebody and you can just one-shot them and be like, ha, I won that because I'm me and you're you, you know, like, you don't, you're going to be at a much higher level than they were, or they just screwed up really bad. So the reason that we say do more than one shot is because your first shot's almost always going to be blocked. So if I do this, they're probably going to block it with their sword. If I do this, they're probably going to block it with their shield. If I do this, shield, or they might even just dodge it. My first shot's not going to do anything. So the more shots that I throw, the higher likelihood is that I'm going to hit them. And that is compounded each time that I throw a strike. So if I throw a 3-shot combo, my third shot has the highest likelihood to hit because that is that's the farthest into my combo that I went. So I only had like a 10% here. This one has like a 20% chance. This one's even more complicated, so I have a higher chance of throwing that one, and so on and so forth. The trade-off to that is the more time I spend in a combo throwing shots, I'm expending my energy, I'm going to become slower, and also I am increasing my risk of being hit. So if I go and I do like a 5-shot combo where I'm like 2, 1, 4, 3, I've probably fucked something up here. I'm going to get hit. I'm water shedding right now. I shouldn't be doing this. I'm going to get hit in my elbow. You know what I mean? So throw combos, but especially towards the beginning level, keep it to 2 or 3. You don't want to go haywire and end up not knowing what you're doing, so on and so forth. So again, we have our 4 spots, and we always want to throw multiple shots at combining those quadrants together. So I could even go from 2 to 3, or 4 to 2, or 1. Or I can even stay on the same side of his body, go for an arm, go for a hip. But I always want to combine those shots. So spend time, if you have a pal or if you have a friend or something like that, spend time imagining those quadrants and comboing shots to each one of them. Additionally, now that you know where you should be hitting, a lot of people when they first start off with red, they want to do these large slashing motions, right? They want to get all of this big, cool, heroic slashes that you're used to seeing in the movies and stuff like that. We're fighting with foam weapons. We don't need to do that. I don't actually need to cleave my opponent in half. I need to tap him on the arm so that he can't use his arm anymore. You know what I mean? So instead of these large motions, right? Instead of these giant crosses and like attacking straight from the back and baseball swinging, all of our motion comes from our core, our forearms, and our wrists. So we're here in our on guard position, right? So we talked about footwork already. We know that our sword's supposed to be out in front of us. There are 2 really important things to know about swinging the sword. So the first one is, if I stand like this, right? What's wrong with my elbows? They're sticking out. People can just snipe those elbows. They can see that. They can take care of that. And that's because I'm doing this, right? And I'm like, haha, I'm powerful. I can attack. However, what we want to do instead is we want to twist our wrists in like imagine you're revving a motorcycle, so that way your elbows come in. So you see how my elbows now are in a lot more than they were. They came in. So we call this chicken winging. We don't want a chicken wing. We want to keep it in like so. So again, my feet are apart. They're in the L shape. My knees are bent. My sword is in front of me, not up here, not down here. It's in front. I have my wrists cocked. My elbows in. Here's my on guard position. So now that I'm in my on guard position, that's our first thing. Our second thing is, how do I throw a shot? And that is, I am twisting my legs and twisting my core and my forearm and my wrist to generate force. And I am making a punching motion with my dominant hand, which is my top hand, and I am pulling with my bottom hand. So that ends up being like so. So all I've done is this motion while twisting and pulling. So that force that's generated there is significantly harder than if I were just to do that, right? And then it's also faster. So that way I can push, pull, reset, come up here, push, pull, go for another quadrant, reset, push, pull, go back for that. And that's how I can keep all of my attacks from right here. So this is a lot less distance that I have to travel for my attacks to hit versus if I were to baseball swing and do all of this extra work that I don't really need to do. So again, we got our 4 quadrants, and we got our push, pull, while twisting. Now you don't, and that is the most important parts of attacking. That is, you are now officially level 1.5. Congratulations. The very last thing that we're going to talk about are stabs. And if you are so new at this that these videos are actually doing something for you, you should definitely consider not stabbing. Because if I go to stab, like so, and I miss that stab, everything's open. All of it. I'm going to get wrecked. It doesn't matter. I could be fighting somebody worse than me, and if I miss that stab, they should capitalize on that, and I should get punished. So, however, there are some situations where stabbing ends up being the only option that you really have. Especially if you have range against an unarmed, like, let's say you have a sword and border who's lost their sword already. Or their shield, I'm sorry. So, my stab is always going to follow my thumb. So my thumb is on my sword, right? Wherever I point my thumb is where my sword's going to end up. So if I just go for a stab, my thumb is pointing towards his face. It's probably going to stab him right in the face. And I'm not even trying to do that. I'm trying to go for the chest, but I might stab him in the chin. So with our two-handed stab especially, we need to be very mindful of that because we don't want to double somebody in the nose. Because that's how you kill somebody for real. And we're here to hurt people in ways that they've been consented to hurt. So instead, I'm always going to go a little lower than what I meant to. So if I want to stab him in the chest, I'm going to go for his stomach, right? And that's the concept behind it there. And of course, you know about the difference between a one-handed and a two-handed strike at this point. If my opponent's wearing armor, for example, and I one-handed stab, call it a single or a green, just whatever. That's never going to do anything to anybody's armor. Their armor can even be broken, and my stab will still not do anything through armor. If I have two hands, I call it double, so I call it double here, that will go through armor no matter what. Make sure you're very vocal about your attacks. If I'm trying to break a shield, I'm going to say, run! At the same time as my attack, so that way they know that I'm swinging a red, and know my intent is to swing a red. I personally don't say red every single time that I strike, because a lot of the times I'm not actually trying to generate enough power to break a shield, which requires a little bit more oomph behind the strike than a normal body shot. My body shots don't need to be quite as strong. However, if I am trying to break through armor, or if I'm trying to break a shield, I will always say that. It's always good to exhale while swinging as well. So if I red in the middle of it, that helps me control breathing. So there's one-handed stabs, right? Same principle. I'm going to aim lower than what I'm trying to go for, because my stab will always end up higher than I mean for it to be until I've gotten a lot of practice. So, we went over quadrants, we went over push and pull, and we went over stabbing. That's all you need to go to your first practice and know what you're doing with the red.